production, and of course broadcasting. We are coming to you live from Buyinja in Kasangati, the home of retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye, a former president of the Forum for Democratic Change and a four-time presidential candidate. We shall be seeking his views on the latest turmoil within Uganda's, one of Uganda's most formidable opposition political parties, and what is the way forward. Of course, we come on the backdrop of allegations that retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye is but one of the many problems of Forum for Democratic Change now. He's been accused of setting up a parallel power center at number 6 Katonga Road that he uses his overwhelming influence within the party to make certain decisions go his way. Whether that is true remains to be seen. He'll be telling us more about that. A very warm welcome to MorningAtNTV, retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye.
Thank you very much, sir, and it's always a pleasure to talk to NTV and to the audience of NTV. So a very good morning to all of you out there who are tuned in this morning, wherever you are joining us from. It's a very downcast morning here in Kasangati, in Buyinja, our village, and you are welcome.
Thank you very much. The events in the last 2 weeks at Forum for Democratic Change and within the country, for that matter, have been shocking, unprecedented for the political party that you are a founder. Before I ask the specifics of what happened and what could be the cause, what is your take on the storm and the turmoil that is currently within the party?
Well, thank you very much. First of all, of course, my take is that it's indeed unfortunate. It is something that could have been avoided. And to that extent, I think I and the leaders of the party have an apology to make to the people of Uganda for this turn of events of having leaders, you know, that fight in the way that has been happening in the last couple of days. But having said that, you see, I have been laboring for a very long time now to explain that what is happening now is not a result just of the actors that are involved. No, it's not a result just of the party president of FDC now, or the secretary general, or the other leaders in the party, or even myself, who is always pulled into the mix. It's not a product of just the leaders. The main cause of what is happening is structural. It's a fact that, you see, political parties are associations of free citizens. Now, that is important to understand. Political parties are associations of free citizens that operate in a free environment. So if you don't have free environment, if you don't have free citizenry to associate, then you cannot have political parties as are known in democratic societies. It's not possible. So we are trying to put a square peg in a round hole, and you'll have a problem if you are trying to do that. So the real challenge that we are grappling with is because political parties have not understood that misfit and adjusted themselves to be able to function in an unfree and hostile environment. They haven't. They have continued to apply themselves as if they are indeed associations of free citizens operating in a free and democratic environment. That is where the trouble lies. So, political parties here, name any of them, they cannot freely raise resources from their membership. Just like you see churches are supported by the faithful who come every Sunday and contribute. They pay 1/10 of their income to the church. That's how political parties are supposed to be funded, not by the government, but by those who believe in them.
Those who believe in them, yeah.
First of all, those who believe in them, and that's why the churches are also in the same problems, those who believe in them have been structurally impoverished. Because that's, you have a population that is totally poor, and by design. But secondly, there is fear that has been built that if you are seen supporting a political party that seeks to remove and replace the current government, you are seen as if you are supporting a terrorist, an enemy of the state. And there are severe consequences. If you are a business person, your business will be destroyed. Revenue authority will come and run over you. All kinds of things will happen. Your business will be destroyed.
Okay.
If you are in employment, you will lose your job. And very many people have lost their jobs directly because of being associated with these parties. So parties cannot raise funds. Now that influences how parties will exist. But so you have a situation where parties cannot hold meetings freely.
Kano, what I see is your justification of the current turmoil and misunderstandings over finances as a result of factors beyond.
That is not called the justification. My intention cannot be to justify, as to simply explain what has caused
we shall dig into the spectre of money and from who the funding comes and at what point and in what nature. First, let me deal with what you describe as a structural problem. You have established a parallel structure, a power center at number 6 Katonga Road, and many believe that you're using your overreaching influence and political posture, which is no doubt gigantic, you still enjoy that, to cause for certain things to go in a certain way at Najana Nkumbi, and this is seen as one of the causes of the latest turmoil, to the extent that the current president, Patrick Amriat, says that if it weren't for this kind of arrangement, perhaps there would be an opportunity to tackle some of the problems in a prompt and swift way.
So, you are shifting from the structural problem in which the party has.
I'm asking you to explain your role.
I understand.
Yes.
I understand the question very well, except that you are mixing them. We were talking about this, and I intend to answer your question, of course. But we were talking about the structural problems that make it impossible for political parties to function in an environment like we have.
Which is understandable, and those are aspects that can be tackled
it's not understandable
at a national dialogue.
So I already talked about the failure to raise funds, but on the other hand, so parties have no funds, but on the other hand, structurally, politics has been commercialized. So because political parties are formed to compete for power, to go into elections.
That's right.
But going into elections has been structurally commercialized so that you need tons of money to participate in an election. So you have parties that have been crippled because they have no money, as I have explained. But on the other hand, in order to participate in an election, you need huge sums of money. For example, to be nominated, just nominated to be an MP representative, was increased from 200,000 to 3 million. So political parties must raise billions of money to nominate their candidates. And yet there are no sources from which to generate this money. This just explains the attractions to raise money in ways that are problematic, which is what we are dealing with. Now, to turn back to your question of the structure, what you seem to compare as also a structural problem within
a power center that you have created
within the FDC. There are no two power centers. There is in the party organs of the party. That is the National Delegates Conference, which is the supreme organ, chaired by the chairman of the party. There is the National Council, which consists of district chairpersons, and the National Executive, chaired by the National Chairman. You have the National Executive Committee, which consists of members of the executive elected by the Delegates Conference, chaired by the party president. You have a working committee of the party, which consists of certain members of the executive, chaired by the party president. These are the decision makers in the party. I am not involved in any of these. They make their decisions. And since you are saying that maybe there is somebody complaining, I would want to hear how, even in the remotest way, I have sought to influence the decisions of NEC. Never. Not now,
Kano,
not when General Muntu was a president.
I was very specific and told you about the influence that you hold as a founding member of Forum for Democratic Change.
Yes, how have I used...
And also a giant political actor. You cannot say, for example, because you're not directly involved in decision making, your posture as one who can even call a press conference on the same day that the party president calls a press conference at a different venue, you cannot dismiss it as something that is of no influence.
So, if I have influence and
you're using it in a wanton way.
You know, if I do, I thank the Lord, because it's the Lord that gives people influence, really. But if I have it and misuse it, there are consequences.
Like the current turmoil?
No, I'm saying there are consequences. So, you see, first of all, let me explain to you what Katonga is all about. Katonga is about unity of political actors regardless of their political party to undertake activities that can weaken and cause a change of the political management of the country. So it is not partisan. Katonga is not partisan. And it should not be seen as conflicting with the party. So for example, at Katonga, we have members of the DP, JEMA, CP, the DP, we are all together. Why are the other parties not complaining about Katonga? So it's not true that there is a conflict between Katonga Road and the party. Our missions are different, and as I have pointed out, personally, I have never, and you can interrogate them in what kind of ways I actually interfere with their decision making.
All right, let me just bring some context to it. Right now, when you hear efforts to resolve the turmoil within the party, names like Frank Nabiso come up, names like the party chairman, Ambassador Waswabirigwa, come up. One would expect, for example, that since you are a founding member and more retired, you are on the sidelines, you would be very vocal as an elder in trying to resolve some of these conflicts. I may not be aware to efforts either by the party to co-opt you into this process or even your own. Wouldn't you think you would be acting best as an elder trying to resolve this conflict alongside Frank Nabiso, Ambassador Birigwa, and any other within the party?
Of course, you are right. And you are wrong to think that I haven't.
You haven't been seen. You have been more vocal and visible in red card campaigns.
Yeah.
And,
so, for example, the matters that are, as you may have realized, the matters that have been subject of the controversy are matters of 2020.
Okay.
This is 2023. So what do you think has been happening between 2020 and 2023? There was immense effort in which I was involved in trying to deal with this and to resolve it, within ourselves, without this having to go into the public arena. But when things don't work out, and they never work out always, they don't always work out. Sometimes they don't. So when they don't, then yes, the public becomes involved, because you see, political parties are public institutions at the end of the day.
That's right.
And so if there are serious problems that don't get resolved, indeed they must end up in the Supreme Court, which is the court of the public, who own these institutions. We don't own them. They are institutions of the people. And so even when issues go to the public, it's not a disaster. It's part and parcel of a process of dealing with controversies in public institutions. Okay. And I am glad. First of all, they shouldn't have gone there, and that's why I have said we have, I think, a duty to apologize to people, especially who get all kinds of confused pictures from ourselves and are not even able to tell where the problem really lies. And we cause anxiety and despondency, people saying now.
Of course, you cannot blame those who are anxious when the political actors are unable to put their own houses in order, yet they seek to put our houses as citizens in order. That one you cannot blame the
but you have missed the point that I have made.
Okay.
That the house we are trying to put in order is not a house of the leaders. It is a house that includes the public, actually.
That is right.
So even going to the public is not going outside the house. It is within the house, except that levels of engagement.
For now, let's stay within the confines of MorningAtNTV and go for a short break. When we return, we shall be digging into the spectre of money, accountability, and the sources of funding, and who can actually bring forth money to an individual and the party. We'll be right back. Do stay with us. You're watching MorningAtNTV. We're glad you're still watching MorningAtNTV. We are coming to you live from Buyinja. This is in Kasangati, the home of retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye, the former president of Forum for Democratic Change and full-time presidential candidate. We are speaking to him and understanding his take on the current political turmoil within what was, no doubt, one of the most formidable political opposition parties in the country before 2021. Some have said that when Kizza Besigye jumped ship as one of the top leaders of the Forum for Democratic Change, he left firecrackers on board, and those have been going off. So much so that right now, the kind of storm that is brewing or we have seen within the party could be a result of some of his actions. He says no. The power centers at the power center rather at number 6 Katonga Road is but an establishment that seeks unity from all political actors to cause the kind of change that he and others want. Allow me now return to Dr. Kizza Besigye and continue the conversation. Let's dig into the specter of money, funding and accountability. It is one that is no doubt the lead or the precursor of the latest turmoil within the party. Spokesperson Ibrahim Semujunganda is very emphatic and is concerned about the fact that accountability for monies is not clear. Sources are known, including National Resistance Movement and President Yoweri Museveni. At your time as president, where did you get the money?
Actually, the political parties are now a little better than they were at the time I was a party leader, which was for 7 years, between 2015 and 2005 and 2012. Because at that time, there was no funding coming from government through the Electoral Commission, as happens now throughout the tenure of my leadership. And therefore, all the money that we depended on had to be raised from our members and sympathizers. And that is why we, for example, started selling our party cards, which at that time actually could raise some significant amount of money from the 1,000 shillings. A party card was 1,000 shillings. In 2005, unfortunately, it is still 1,000 shillings now. That is
inflation has not been factored in.
18 years later, it is still 1,000. But at that time it was 1,000, and people were enthusiastic to buy cards. There was a range. One could buy a card even of 1 million or even of 5 million. And some members I know, there are quite a number of members I know who bought cards for 5 million. A card of 5 million.
That is right.
And others 1 million and so on. So we were trying to fundraise from our members, but also from our sympathizers, business community and so on and so forth. And as I have told you, the aggression against anybody who contributed money then started and intensified. Even for people to be found with an FDC card was like a crime. If they arrested you and found you with an FDC card, you would sit in hot water. and so the possibility of raising money the way we were doing has been dwindling as a result of that. And maybe indeed because the NRM party, they call it an organization, but it is the state. The NRM which we contest with is really the state. It uses state resources, state money and so on.
So how much money did you receive from the state for your funding?
When?
Across your political activities?
Zero. Zero, absolutely zero. I've never received, whether personally, whether institutionally, while I were in FDC.
So FDC did not receive any money from the Electoral Commission, no from the state? Absolutely,
zero. Not while I was in charge. The law providing for political party funding is a recent law. I think it was passed maybe around 2013 or somewhere there, between 2011, I think, and It
Were
was,
there attempts by President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni or any actors within the national resistance movement to give you money?
no, happily not.
Did anyone within the Forum for Democratic Change suggest that you could receive money from the president?
No, they couldn't. Nobody could suggest such a thing. Because you see, our mission, the reason we formed at all, was to dismantle the apparatus that had captured the country, that was really illegally controlling the country, which is the junta, the NRM junta, which we call, and advisedly I call it a junta, which is an armed cabal that captured the country and controls it, outside the constitution, outside, it's an illegal and I even add criminal outfit. So we could not consider in the remotest way appealing to the very entity that I am describing to work with support us. How it would be the biggest contradiction in terms.
The party spokesperson, Ibrahim Samujunganda, claims that Secretary General Nandala Mafabi, President Patrick Amuriat Oboy have received funding from President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. As a one-time party president and founder, has Ibrahim Samujunganda interacted with you, or have you sought to interact with him in order to understand the basis of his claims?
No, actually, what Semujunganda, I think, is raising is what I raised myself. Semujunganda was not the source of that. It was me, except that they have externalized it. I informed our National Council meeting that part of the reason I did not become active in the last election to campaign and to become active were because of some problems that crept up in the party, including what I believed was illicit money. So I gave that information myself to the National Council, where obviously the Honorable Semuju is a member, and other members of the council. And no doubt it has spilled to the public arena from that engagement of the National Council. So I take responsibility for having introduced the information to the National Council. The Honorable Semuju may have had his own sources of information, but my source of information was certainly not the Honorable Semujunganda.
Okay.
Now, when I did present it to the National Council, the National Council, in its wisdom, directed that a committee of elders should be set up to delve into this matter, to examine it, to investigate, and to report back to the National Council. It is that committee which eventually that was set up. It has also become controversial.
What's the timeline of its work? When is it supposed to?
But it is the one that is headed by Dr. Frank Nabuiso. That is the committee, and it has been working. And I submitted myself to it when it required me to do so, and gave them whatever information I had. It is reporting to the National Council, which has now been fixed for Friday this week. on the 28th.
28th, yeah.
Regrettably, the people who set up that committee, then instead of submitting themselves to the committee and waiting for the committee to produce a report, they went ahead to start organizing meetings of leaders of FDC in districts all over Uganda, presenting why I am a problem and how this money cannot be, even making accusations against me and so on and so forth. Without, they set up the committee and went immediately ahead to sabotage it.
All right.
So I will not be attracted myself to do the same. I have given my information to the committee.
Great.
The committee is going to report on Friday. I will wait. I will not discuss the details of what has happened until the committee has had its report made and
evidently we are also eagerly waiting for that particular report to come from the committee. But you say you have a lot of information. Can you break down the clusters of illicit money that is coming into Forum for Democratic Change?
Well,
both during your time as party president, but also what you know that is happening now.
I have already told you what we did to raise money during my time.
That was not illicit.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah.
And
what is this
I'm not
illicit?
aware.
What's the illicit money?
I'm not aware of anybody who has ever raised an issue of some illicit money coming our way.
But you just said
what
it's illicit money.
What is forbidden and why this is being engaged with is because the source now extended to areas that we consider hostile to the party. And that's what makes it, you know, even in the national elections, by the way, the law does not allow us to raise money from, say, countries which are hostile to Uganda. That's why at one time the parliament issued a list of countries hostile to Uganda, which included Rwanda and Sudan, and so that then if you are caught raising funds from there, you are committing a crime.
So it is true, party leaders within the Forum for Democratic Change are receiving money from sources including President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni.
Well, I have just told you that that information which was given to the National Council is a subject of inquiry by the Elders Committee led by Dr. Frank Nabuiso. And until that Elders Committee gives its report, I have chosen not to follow the example of my colleagues who then went ahead to do all kinds of things
I understand.
in that regard.
Now, there is internal elections coming up within the Forum for Democratic Change, and many see the latest misunderstandings as effort by each to position themselves ahead of those elections for who they want to support, or to even put themselves in a position of favor for those positions that they might want. One of those positions being looked at is the place of Elias Lukwago, who is your deputy president in the People's Government that sits at number 6 Katonga Road. He's into elective politics as the Lord Mayor of Kampala, yet he subscribes to a script that you have laid out on defiance activism, and many times he's a conflicted politician. He's in elective position trying to defy or be part of a script that looks at elections as not viable. Are you propping Elias Lukwago ahead of 2026?
Well, first of all, we have been very proud of elections in the Forum for Democratic Change, because we are distinctly the only party since independence that has been regularly, democratically changing its leaders in very transparent processes, where leaders that have not been chosen concede their defeat. We have never had any problem so far in that regard. We have now 3 party leaders that have been leading FDC in just 17 years, coming to 18 years. And so whoever leads FDC has been a choice of the people in the delegates conference of FDC, who themselves are elected in very transparent processes across Uganda. The elections in Nambole have always been covered by the media in their entirety until a declaration of a candidate.
No, so, yeah, we are not questioning the process. So
I cannot be the one to determine who becomes a leader in the FDC. In fact, I was accused of having not supported General Muntu, and I think that was generally assumed because he had been my competitor in the previous elections. So I was accused of not supporting General Muntu, including by, I think he himself has made those kind of observations. But General Muntu won. To replace me, I was...
Colonel, it is your right to support anybody within the party for elective positions. Are you propping Elias Lukwago ahead of 2026?
If I am propping anybody, I will not prop them in secret. I will prop them and declare whom, and that's how politics works.
When do you intend to declare
You must endorse. You must endorse. If
when do you intend to endorse?
You cannot. That's how politics works.
When do you intend to endorse?
So now, for the time being, the biggest problem, which is part of this controversy, is that there is a contested electoral process for the first time in FDC. And in fact, elections were supposed to have started on Friday last week. And actually, I saw stories by NTV which went to different places trying to find out whether elections had indeed taken place. And the reason they were trying to do so was because of that controversy. Many people in the party saying, no, elections should not start now when there are all these controversies.
That's right.
And so, before we even talk about who is suited for which office, the first and most critical thing that must be sorted out, and I hope that the National Council that sits this week will especially sort that out, that we must have a credible process, because that is our hallmark, that is our brand, that we have transparent, credible processes of bringing leaders. It's problematic in itself having that kind of a process because of the environment in which we live, which is why I was telling you that political parties need to organize themselves differently. But before that happens, we have a duty to have a transparent process that will bring the next set of leaders. And when that process is in place, then people can aspire. As of now, I think it would be jumping the gun for people to start aspiring when there is no process.
Colonel, you are a very philosophical politician. Yesterday, while attending the send-off of the late Honorable Hussein Chanjo, you spoke very emphatically about the fact that dislodging the national resistance movement won't take elections. You've just espoused the sentiment that elections are fundamental and critical, and the party is actually ensuring that that process is streamlined. You told mourners that if you know that elections are not going to bring the kind of change that you want, it is futile for you to engage in processes that lead to elections. I'm confused. What do you want Ugandans to engage in?
The level of state capture by the Museveni family and now allying with all kinds of foreigners is one that will not be removed. This has been my assertion. I continue to make it. Will not be removed through a process organized, controlled, and owned literally by the same Mr. Museveni family. It won't happen. And they captured that power using force. They control the country using force.
We, you say we, you were part of that.
No, I'm saying what I'm saying advisedly. I was part of the National Resistance Army, which was also captured. And so I'm talking about this advisedly.
Go right ahead.
To end this capture will take a revolution. Unfortunately, this is the reality. It is going to take a revolution. Our political formations must become part of that revolution. And therefore, what we need now is a de-emphasis of our partisanship. For me, I am this. For me, I am this. We are all captives, and we must behave as such fast. We get together, we regain control over the country. We cannot start providing leadership for something we don't control. We must first regain control and influence in the country. Once we have done that, we should have a transitional process that then regulates how we can fairly participate in its governance. And that means the Constitution, we must, once people have now have control over the country, they must make their own constitution. You cannot make a constitution and it becomes your constitution when you have no power. Two, we must then rebuild institutions so that they cease being institutions of the family of Mr. Museveni, which they are now. We don't have an electoral commission, we have a Museveni commission. We don't have a Bank of Uganda, we have a Bank of Museveni. We don't have a national army, we have a Museveni army, which he himself calls so. This is my army. We don't have the national oil company, it is my oil. We must change all the state institutions to become national institutions.
Doctor, I'm afraid we are out of time. I'll ask one very last question, pointed. If Engineer Patrick Oboy Amriat, Nathan Nandala Mafabi, Ambassador Waswa Birigwa, Frank Nawiso sought you right now to be able to find a quick solution to the turmoil within the Forum for Democratic Change, are you available? Yes or no?
Your question is faulty because you already say it must be a quick solution. So if we can't find a quick solution, then my answer will be no. I am always ready, I'm always available, I'm always engaged. I don't have to be sought. I am here, I'm participating in all activities that can lead to the resolution of these controversies. So I'm available,
Okay.
And I did point out at a press last week that what the leaders of the party today need to do is to step back and reflect and seek a different path from the belligerence and you know, the kind of lies that have been taught.
All right, thank you very much, retired Colonel Dr. Kizza Besigye. It's been a pleasure.
Sorry, it's a great pleasure.
And thank you for the perspective on how best the Forum for Democratic Change, a party that you were one of the founders, can resolve its latest.
Have a great day, and a great day to all Ugandans.
Thank you very much. That will do it for this edition of Morning at